My name is Clara Bennett, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had a simple, stable life. I was 38 years old, a project coordinator at a logistics company, and I had been married to my husband, Nathan Bennett, for 12 years. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We owned a modest 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where the mailman knew your name and the neighbors waved when you drove past. I believed my marriage was built on trust. Nathan handled most of our financial paperwork because he always said he was better with numbers. I handled the schedules, the bills, and the day-to-day details of life. It felt balanced. Or at least, that's what I thought. Nathan was charming when he wanted to be. The kind of man who could make strangers laugh in the grocery line. But behind closed doors, he could also be distant, secretive, and sometimes cold in ways I couldn't explain. Still, I convinced myself every marriage had rough edges. So when my phone rang at work that Tuesday afternoon and I saw Nathan's name on the screen, I answered like I always did, expecting a normal conversation. Maybe a question about dinner. Maybe a reminder to pick something up on the way home. I had no idea that in less than 60 seconds, Nathan would say a sentence that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life. And even more shocking, he had absolutely no idea what I was about to discover an hour later. The call came at 2:17 in the afternoon. I remember the time because I had just finished checking a stack of invoices at my desk. The office was quiet except for the soft hum of the machines and the sound of rain tapping the windows. I answered with a small smile. "Hi, Nathan." His voice was calm. Too calm. "Clara, I thought you should know something," he said. My stomach tightened. "What is it?" "I sold the house this morning," Nathan said, almost casually. "And I filed for divorce." For a moment, I thought I had heard him wrong. "You what?" My voice barely came out. Nathan laughed. A short, cold sound. "The paperwork is already done. The buyers are excited. You'll need to pack your things soon." My fingers went numb around the phone. "You can't sell the house without me," I said. "My name is on the deed." Nathan laughed again, louder this time. "You always were too trusting," he said. "I figured it out." The call ended before I could say another word. I stared at my phone while the rain outside grew heavier. One thought kept repeating in my mind. If Nathan had really sold the house, how had he done it without my signature? For the next few minutes, I couldn't move. The office around me carried on like normal. Chairs rolled across the floor. Phones rang. Someone laughed near the break room. But inside my chest, something heavy had settled. I slowly placed my phone on my desk and stared at the stack of invoices in front of me. Numbers usually calmed me. But right then, the numbers blurred. My co-worker, Lydia, noticed my face. "Clara, are you okay?" she asked, stepping beside my desk. I forced a small smile. "Just a headache." Lydia frowned but didn't push. Most people at the office knew me as the quiet one. I brought homemade soup for the team during cold weeks. I helped new staff learn the accounting system. When someone needed help, I stayed late. Kindness felt simple to me. Life had not always been easy, but helping others made the hard parts lighter. That was the life Nathan and I had built, or at least the life I believed we had. I picked up my phone again and opened my email. And that's when I saw it. A message from Brightstone Realty. Subject line: Property transfer, final notice. My heart skipped. Nathan hadn't been lying. Something was happening to our house. My hands trembled as I opened the email. The message was short and formal. "Dear Mrs. Clara Bennett, this message confirms that the property transfer for 114 Willow Lane is currently pending final authorization." My eyes locked on one word. Pending. The sale wasn't finished yet. I quickly checked the time. It was only 2:32 p.m. Brightstone Realty closed at 5. If I left work right now, I could still get there. I grabbed my bag and stood so fast my chair rolled backward. Lydia looked up again. "Clara." "I have to leave early," I said. Concern filled her eyes. "Is everything all right?" "I'm not sure yet." Outside, the rain had turned into a steady downpour. As I rushed toward my car, one thought kept circling my mind. Nathan sounded certain the house was already gone. But if the sale still needed something from me, what exactly had he done? The first thing I did after leaving the office was call the county records office. My hands shook as I searched the public property database on my phone. I typed our address slowly, afraid of what I might see. For a moment, the screen stayed blank. Then the record loaded. My stomach dropped. A property transaction had been filed that morning. But the name listed as the buyer wasn't Nathan. It was Olivia Bennett. I blinked. Olivia Bennett was my husband's younger sister. Why would Nathan sell our house to his sister? It made no sense. Unless it wasn't really a sale. Unless it was a trick. My mind started racing. If Nathan transferred the house to Olivia, he might be trying to hide it before the divorce. If the property was no longer in his name, maybe he thought I couldn't claim it. But something about the document bothered me. The sale price listed was $10. 10. Not 10,000. $10. My heart started beating faster. That wasn't a real sale. That was a paper transfer. And suddenly I realized something very important. Nathan might have thought he was being clever. But if the transfer had been done after divorce papers were filed, he might have just committed fraud. I drove straight to the courthouse. Traffic lights blurred past while my mind tried to catch up with everything that had happened. Nathan had called me only an hour earlier, laughing while he said he sold the house. At the time, I thought he had destroyed my life. Now I wasn't so sure. When I reached the clerk's office, I asked if I could see the divorce filing. The woman at the desk typed for a moment, then nodded. Yes, it was submitted this morning. My chest tightened. Can I see the paperwork? She printed a copy and slid it across the counter. I read the first page slowly. Nathan Bennett. Filed for divorce. Petitioner. My eyes moved further down the page. And that was when something strange jumped out at me. The filing time. 9:12 a.m. I opened the property transfer record on my phone again. The timestamp showed 10:03 a.m. Nathan filed for divorce first. Then he transferred the house. I felt a cold wave of realization. If a divorce had already started, moving shared assets could be illegal. Nathan thought he had outsmarted me. But what he had really done was leave a perfect paper trail. I stepped outside the courthouse and sat on a bench, staring at the documents. My heart was still racing. Nathan believed he had taken everything. The house. The stability. The life we built. But he didn't know what I knew. I opened my contacts and called my friend Melissa Carter. Melissa had been a lawyer for almost 15 years. She answered on the second ring. Clara? Is everything okay? I laughed softly. No, I said. But it might be. I explained everything. Nathan's call. The house transfer. The $10 sale. The timing of the divorce filing. Melissa was silent for a moment. Then she said something that made my pulse spike. Clara. He might have just handed you the entire case. What do you mean? If he transferred marital property after filing for divorce without court approval, she said slowly, a judge will not like that. So what happens? Melissa chuckled quietly. Well, the court could reverse the transfer. My breath caught. Meaning the house could still legally be considered yours too. For the first time since Nathan's call, I smiled. Nathan thought he had ended my life with one phone call. But the truth was, the story was just beginning. Melissa told me to meet her at her office that evening. By the time I arrived, the sky had turned dark. She was already reviewing the documents when I walked in. Clara, she said, pointing to the papers, this is worse than I thought. I sat down quickly. What do you mean? She slid the property transfer toward me. The house wasn't just transferred to Olivia. I frowned. Yes, it was. Melissa shook her head. No. She tapped another page. There's a second document. My chest tightened. What document? A mortgage release. I blinked. That's impossible. We still owed money on the house. Exactly, Melissa said. She leaned back in her chair. Which means Nathan either paid the mortgage off suddenly. Or he used money from somewhere he didn't want you to see. A chill ran down my spine. Nathan had never mentioned paying off the house. We didn't have that kind of money. So where had it come from? Melissa folded her hands together. Clara, I think there's something bigger going on here. What kind of something? She looked straight at me. The kind that could destroy Nathan in court. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in my small apartment staring at the documents spread across the table. Every piece of paper told a story. A story Nathan never expected me to read. The divorce filing. The property transfer. The mortgage release. One question kept repeating in my mind. Where did the money come from? Nathan didn't earn enough to suddenly pay off the house. And I handled most of our basic finances. If a large amount of money had appeared, I would have noticed. Unless Nathan had been hiding it. I opened my laptop and logged into our shared financial account. The transaction history loaded slowly. Then something caught my eye. A deposit. Large. Very large. $240,000. The date was 3 days earlier. My heart started pounding. I clicked the transaction details. The source listed was a company I had never heard of. Westbridge Development Group. I leaned back in my chair. Nathan didn't work for any company like that. So why would they send him almost $250,000? And more importantly, what had he done to earn it? The next morning I showed Melissa the bank record. She stared at the screen for a long time. Clara, this changes everything. How? Because this looks like a payment. A payment for what? That, she said quietly, is the question. Melissa searched the company name. Within seconds, several articles appeared. My stomach twisted as I read them. Westbridge Development Group was a property investment company. They specialized in buying land and redeveloping neighborhoods. Melissa pointed to one article. Look at the date. It was from 2 weeks earlier. The headline mentioned a major development project planned in our area. My heart skipped. Melissa. Yes. The land they want. I pulled up a map on my phone. The highlighted zone covered several streets, including ours. Melissa leaned forward slowly. Clara, if developers want your neighborhood. My chest tightened. They would need the houses. She nodded. And if someone helped them buy those houses quietly. I finished the thought. They might get paid. We both looked back at the $240,000 deposit. Suddenly Nathan's actions made terrifying sense. Melissa explained the situation carefully. If developers wanted your street, she said, they would need property owners willing to sell. That's normal, I said. Yes, she agreed. But sometimes they try to buy properties before the project becomes public. So the prices stay low. Exactly. A cold realization spread through me. Nathan helped them. Melissa nodded slowly. He may have agreed to sell your house early. But he couldn't do that without me, I said. That's probably why he filed for divorce first. The pieces snapped together like a puzzle. Nathan removed me legally, transferred the house to his sister, and took a huge payment from developers. All before the public announcement. My voice came out quiet. He thought I'd never figure it out. Melissa leaned back. Clara, if this is true, it could be more than divorce fraud. What do you mean? She met my eyes. This could involve illegal property manipulation. My stomach twisted. Nathan didn't just betray me. He might have broken the law. And if investigators looked closely, they would follow the money. 2 days later the news broke. The city officially announced a massive redevelopment project. Dozens of houses in my neighborhood were scheduled for purchase. Property values skyrocketed overnight. My phone buzzed non-stop. Neighbors were shocked. Some were excited. Others were angry they hadn't been warned. But I knew something they didn't. Nathan already knew. He had known for weeks. That's why he rushed the divorce. That's why he transferred the house. That's why the developers paid him. Melissa watched the news with me in her office. They'll start contacting homeowners soon, she said. I nodded slowly. And what about our house? Melissa smiled slightly. That depends on the court. She lifted the property documents. If we prove Nathan illegally transferred marital property, what happens? The judge could reverse everything. And the developers? They'll have to negotiate properly. I stared at the screen showing my old neighborhood. Nathan believed he had secured a fortune. But if the court stepped in, his entire plan might collapse. And the person who thought she lost everything might actually win. Nathan finally called again 3 days later. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Clara, he said, sounding confident. I assume you got the divorce papers. I did. And the house is already sold, he added proudly. I leaned back in my chair. Is it? Of course. Olivia owns it now. I let a small silence hang between us. Then I asked calmly, did you tell the court that? He paused. What do you mean? You transferred marital property after filing. Nathan laughed. That's not a problem. Oh. Olivia bought it legally. For $10. The silence on the line turned heavy. You checked the records, he said slowly. Yes. Nathan's voice hardened. It doesn't matter. The house isn't yours anymore. I smiled faintly. You might want to talk to a lawyer, Nathan. Why? Because mine thinks the judge will reverse the transfer. Nathan scoffed. That won't happen. Maybe, I said calmly. Then I added one more sentence. And Nathan, the court will probably ask about the $240,000 deposit too. He hung up instantly. Melissa burst out laughing when I told her about the call. Oh, he's panicking now. Good, I said quietly. She looked serious again. Clara, once this goes to court, everything becomes public. That's fine. But investigators might look deeper into his deal with the developers. I nodded slowly. Nathan had started this war. He believed I was powerless. That I would simply disappear after the divorce. Instead, his own greed had exposed everything. I stared out the office window at the city lights. 3 weeks earlier I had been a normal woman with a quiet life. Now my husband was facing a legal disaster. And the biggest twist? He caused it himself. Melissa gathered the papers. The hearing is next week. My pulse quickened. And after that? She smiled slightly. After that, Nathan might realize something very important. What? He didn't just lose his wife. Melissa tapped the documents. He may have lost everything. The courthouse felt colder than I remembered. Nathan stood across the room with his lawyer. When he saw me walk in with Melissa, his confident smile disappeared. For a moment we simply stared at each other. 12 years of marriage reduced to silence. The judge entered and the hearing began. Melissa spoke first. She calmly explained the timeline. Divorce filed. Property transferred. Mortgage cleared. Money received. Every step Nathan took appeared on paper. Nathan's lawyer tried to argue the sale was legitimate. But Melissa raised the final document. The $10 purchase agreement. The judge frowned. $10 for a residential property? Nathan shifted uncomfortably. Melissa continued. And this transfer happened less than an hour after the divorce filing. The courtroom stayed quiet. Then the judge said the words Nathan clearly didn't expect. This transaction raises serious concerns. My heart pounded. Nathan looked furious. But for the first time since that phone call, he didn't look confident. He looked worried. The judge ordered a temporary freeze on the property. That meant the house couldn't be sold again or transferred. Nathan's plan had just stopped completely. Outside the courtroom, he stormed toward me. "You think you're clever?" he snapped. I stayed calm. "I think you made mistakes. This isn't over." "I know," I said softly. Nathan glared at Melissa. "You poisoned her against me." Melissa raised an eyebrow. "You did that yourself." Nathan looked like he wanted to argue more, but his lawyer grabbed his arm and pulled him away. As he walked down the hall, I noticed something new. Nathan's confidence was gone. In its place was something else. Fear. Melissa turned to me. "This is only the beginning." "What happens next?" "The court will investigate the transfer." "And the money?" She nodded. "That too." For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Nathan's perfect plan had cracks. And those cracks were getting bigger. 2 days later, another surprise arrived. Melissa called me early in the morning. "You need to see this." "What is it?" "An email from the developers." I rushed to her office. The message was short but shocking. Westbridge Development Group claimed they were unaware of Nathan's divorce situation. They believed the property had a single owner. "That's not true," I said. Melissa nodded. "They may not want to be involved in a legal dispute." "So what happens?" "They might cancel the agreement." My eyes widened. "You mean Nathan could lose the deal?" "Exactly." She leaned back thoughtfully. "And if the payment they gave him was based on false information? They might demand it back." My heart skipped. Nathan had already spent part of the money paying off the mortgage. If the developers wanted it returned, he could be in serious trouble. Melissa closed the email slowly. "Clara, this situation is about to get very interesting." Nathan called again that night. This time he didn't sound confident. "Clara, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "You should drop the case." "Why?" "It will be easier for both of us." I almost laughed. "Easier for you, you mean?" He sighed heavily. "The developers are reconsidering the deal." "I know." There was a long pause. Then Nathan said something desperate. "If we settle quietly, we can both walk away with money." My voice stayed calm. "You already tried to walk away with everything." "That's not fair." "Neither was your phone call." Nathan's frustration was obvious. "You're ruining this." "No," I said softly. "You did that yourself." He hung up again. And I realized something. Nathan wasn't calling to threaten me anymore. He was calling because he was scared. The second court hearing came quickly. This time the courtroom was fuller. Word about the case had started spreading through the neighborhood. The judge reviewed new documents submitted by Melissa. Bank records. The developer payment. The property transfer. Nathan sat silently while the evidence piled up. Finally the judge spoke. "The court finds the property transfer suspicious and likely intended to hide marital assets." Nathan's shoulders stiffened. "Therefore, the transfer to Olivia Bennett is temporarily void." A wave of shock spread through the room. The house legally returned to joint ownership. Nathan's face turned pale. But the judge wasn't finished. He glanced at another document. "And the financial payment from Westbridge Development Group will be reviewed for potential fraud." Nathan's lawyer whispered urgently to him. I watched Nathan carefully. The man who laughed on the phone weeks ago looked completely different now. He didn't look powerful. He looked trapped. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. Within days, Westbridge Development Group requested a meeting with both of us. They wanted clarity about the property. Nathan arrived looking exhausted. Dark circles filled the space under his eyes. The company representatives were polite but firm. They explained their position clearly. If the house was not solely owned by Nathan, then the early payment agreement might be invalid. Nathan tried to argue, but the documents told another story. Melissa presented the court order restoring joint ownership. The developers exchanged quiet looks. Finally, one of them spoke. "In that case, we must renegotiate with both homeowners. Nathan's head snapped toward me. I stayed silent. The representative continued calmly. And the initial payment made to Mr. Bennett will need to be reviewed. Nathan looked like he might faint, because everyone in the room understood what that meant. The money he already spent might have to be returned. A week later, the developers offered a new deal. This time the offer was public. Every homeowner on our street received the same proposal. And the price was far higher than Nathan's secret agreement. When I saw the number, I almost laughed. Nathan's early deal had been worth $240,000. The public offer for our house alone was $520,000. More than double. Neighbors celebrated. Some immediately accepted. Others hesitated. Nathan called me again that night. His voice sounded hollow. If we accept the offer, we split the money. Yes. And the developer payment? They'll deduct it. Nathan groaned quietly, because he finally understood. The money he took early wasn't a bonus. It was an advance. One that now had to be accounted for. His greedy shortcut had cost him hundreds of thousands. The final divorce hearing arrived 2 months later. By then, the house sale was already moving forward. The judge reviewed the financial records carefully. Nathan had tried to hide assets, attempted to transfer property illegally, and misrepresented ownership to developers. None of that impressed the court. The judge issued the final ruling. The sale proceeds from the house would be split evenly. But Nathan had to repay the early developer advance from his half, because he received it alone. When the math was finished, the result stunned him. Nathan walked into the deal expecting a huge payday. Instead, he owed money. His portion of the sale barely covered the advance and legal fees. Meanwhile, my half remained untouched. Nathan stared at the documents like he couldn't believe them. But the numbers were clear. His plan to cheat me had destroyed his own fortune. Outside the courthouse, Nathan approached me slowly. For the first time since all of this started, he didn't sound angry. He sounded defeated. I didn't think you'd fight back, he admitted. I looked at him calmly. You didn't think I'd understand what you did. He nodded quietly. I thought I was being smart. You were being greedy. Nathan didn't argue. He just stared at the ground. I lost everything, he said. I considered that statement for a moment. You lost a lot, I agreed. Then I added gently, but you did that yourself. Nathan sighed. There was nothing left to say. 12 years of marriage had ended not with a dramatic explosion, but with the quiet collapse of his own choices. He walked away slowly, and I never saw him again. 6 months later, the neighborhood looked completely different. Demolition crews had started clearing the old houses. Soon an entirely new development would rise in their place. I drove past the street one afternoon and parked nearby. For a moment I just watched the machines work. The house Nathan claimed he sold behind my back was already gone, reduced to piles of wood and dust. But strangely, I didn't feel sad. Because the truth was simple. Nathan believed one phone call would destroy my life. When he laughed and said he sold our house, he thought he had already won. What he didn't realize was that his own plan contained the evidence that would undo him. The paperwork, the timing, the hidden money. All of it pointed straight back to him. And in the end, the man who tried to leave me with nothing, walked away with less than anyone. As I started my car and drove away, one thought stayed with me. Sometimes the people who betray you the worst are also the ones who accidentally deliver your greatest victory.